Welcome to Reaching New Heights with Troy Bell, the city manager, City of Muskegon Heights, where you get to know what you need to know so you'll be in the know. Thank you so much to everybody who has been tuning into our show, that has been following along to the show diligently. All the good comments that we've heard coming in. I think I'm hearing a little bit of reverb here. Um, Hold on just a second here. That's it. Yep. So, um, I don't know if you folks have heard the news or not, but there's a possibility, strong possibility, that I may not be with you here in this capacity much longer. I'm hoping that's not the case. Hoping that's misinformation. I know that our friends in the media have been circling around this idea that the city manager was let go or fired or what have you. But just to clarify, the vote the other night was not to renew the contract that was in front of council. That doesn't necessarily mean that another one couldn't be presented. It was my understanding that everything had been worked out, all the concessions had been made, and that the contract was acceptable. But that's not how the vote came out. But I just want to clarify that the information that has come through on the media has, um, in some ways, been less than accurate. Some of the media reported it correctly, some didn't, but I understand that they've got a need to publish. Now, I understand that their motivation, uh, 9 out of 10 times, their motivation is focused on the idea of trying to get things that people will read, but it doesn't take away the fact that it needs to be accurate. So that said, today is an opportunity for us to have a conversation. I know that there's been a lot that's been said on Facebook, and I mean, as much as I relish the responsibility to communicate well to our lookers and listeners, um, the clerk's office and their IT folks are the ones that pay the most attention to what is on Facebook. I think we're going to go ahead and adjust the camera here because we were just, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Blessed with a visitor who is going to join us here for this show to talk a little bit about what we're talking about on what may be the last show that I am able to participate in this capacity. But I do want to talk about a couple of things. One, I want to talk about some of the things that we have been able to accomplish. And when I say we, that is the community, that is the um, the organization, the city, that is myself, and I also have to give credit to the council, even though some members may have not approved what I thought was an acceptable concession for renewal. What we've been able to accomplish, you have to give credit to all of us coming together. It takes a team. We all got to be in the boat. We all need to be rowing, and we need to be rowing in the same direction.
Most definitely.
Yes, and preferably, if we're rowing in the same direction, we're all in the same boat. Even if we're off a little bit, we can correct. It's a lot easier to course correct a boat that's in motion than it is to try to fix a boat that's not even moving. And we have to also realize that anytime a boat moves, it makes waves. And sometimes some people are happy with those waves and other people aren't. But what we have to focus on is the boat is moving in a positive direction. And I think that's what we've been able to accomplish. So I'm going to pause there before we go in and talk about some of the things that we as a group have been able to pull together that sometimes we forget, and say hello to my guest here, Miss Phyllis Laudermill.
Hi, thank you for waiting. I was on the line with Mishta and Bank of London earlier, so I think I can hopefully help clarify, but kind of get us in that direction. And then there were several people that called, that wonders why, when you make announcements on certain projects, why does it take so long for those things to come through? So I spent the last couple of days explaining some of those things, and not just explaining, but giving confirmation for that from some of the team members that we're working with. And hopefully, with what this evening, we're hoping that whatever the city is going to present, that it will be a positive as to where we're going.
So you're referring to the special session that was called by the mayor and members of council for today at 6 p.m.
Yes.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we'll have to wait and see. I got a peek into what was on the calendar agenda for that, and I don't believe there was anything on there with regard to renewing my contract specifically. I know that there's a need, as it should be,
Most definitely.
for update on some of the things that have been going on for the city manager, and so I'm happy to provide that. Notwithstanding all the issues that have happened, we know, well, I know that my heart is with the city of Muskegon Heights, and whether I am in this capacity or not, I am going to do whatever I can and whenever I can to make sure that the city keeps moving forward. So this is part of that.
So, and that was a big question today, with when Mr. and I were talking, and as to what can we do better to better help our community understand how those things work. And you're most definitely correct. This incident went definitely stayed viral. And there were folk that were calling, and there are some investors that have invested into this community. They're calling, and they're not just my projects. There are other projects that are affecting it as well, and they're asking, what is the problem? Where did we go wrong? And I said, I think sometimes when you look at how we communicate and what we communicate, I think is the biggest monster here. So questions was asked, like, what happened to your project? Well, it's real simple. What we started, what we wanted to do, sometimes is a different reality. The biggest thing was we thought that we can piggyback off of the value of Muskegon. We couldn't. He's building 220. Reality, you can't.
So you're talking about the housing project,
yeah.
Right?
So I'm going to try to take you for the ones that we talked about today. Mm-hmm. And we looked at how transparent that maybe either, I know you were aware, and there were some of your council people that were aware, but maybe all of them were not, or maybe this community was not aware. When you see that startup, you don't understand where it stops. Did we put a press release out that we could not pull the value? We didn't.
I know that we had groundbreaking. And,
yes.
Which went very
extremely well.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it. I was in the hospital at the time.
Well, the joke is we said you were playing sick that day.
Yeah, sick is something else. I've never been to the hospital, and that was a first for me. But I understand that I missed a tremendous event, and there were a number of people that showed up and participated in it. And there's been a lot of thought around, this was a great start. What has happened? And I think what we have to make sure that people are clear on, and I think this is an area you talked about communication, that it's not clear. They want to look at the city and say, well, the city isn't doing this and the city isn't doing that. And they also want to compare the city of Muskegon Heights to other communities around us that are doing some of these things. And what we have to understand, I think, in communicating is that these other communities have money. And when you have money, you can incentivize development. You can do things to spur that on. And then when you do that, then there's a certain degree of accountability that comes with the money that the city puts into it. In your case, and in the case of what we've been asking developers to do, we're asking you to use your own finances. We're asking you to come out of your own pocket to capitalize off of the value that you see in Muskegon Heights because of the care and concern and the feelings that you have. Which, I mean, those things have value. They may not be monetized, but they have value. And other builders may not see that. Fortunately, you do. And that because of your care and concern, you're willing to come out of your pocket. But the timeline is your timeline. It's not the timeline of the city. The only thing that the city can do, and we've done this,
is support me in the way that you have.
yes, and also ask you to sign a document that says you have to build within 3 years, right? That's
Yes.
something that we have never done before in Muskegon Heights. And so people might say, well, 3 years is a long time. Well, when you look at all the things that all the boxes that you checked off, you prepaid taxes on it. So the
Mhm.
city's covered for 3 years for those taxes. You agreed to provide down payment assistance, credit repair, access to home ownership mentorship. These are all the things that over a 3 year period that when you start to look at it, it's not a lot. I mean, 3 months is not a long time.
Not at all, especially when you have to look at, as a
3 years, I
developer,
said.
you have to leverage. So when we leverage everything, and we thought we had the perfect storm.
Mm-hmm.
So John Bobstead, and I was talking about that earlier today, is that when we got there, what we didn't,
Senator Bumstead.
yes, I'm
Okay.
sorry, Senator Bobstead,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't realize how hard it was to get that value.
Mm-hmm.
So that when I invest, and so when you look at, if I'm $30,000 in the hole,
Mm-hmm.
how do I get it back? And that was when things started really slowing up, because I didn't know how I was going to get it back. I didn't want to overcharge the customer. We want them to be able to have an affordable mortgage. We had 3 times trying to get an appraisal. It just wasn't there. So when you look at 190 and you look at 230, how do I get that money? So then Mishta came on board,
Mm-hmm.
and they're doing an excellent job, and to look at how we can fill in the gaps, right? And that's the Michigan State Housing Authority.
Mm-hmm.
And then we looked at the first time home buyers, nonprofit that we needed. And now we're trying to bring one into Muskegon Heights, right? Everything we needed, we did not have. Thomas at Urban Apparel said something to me earlier that reminded me. He said, I got a picture of you and Gloria Gardner and those other people back in almost like 20 years.
Wow.
When they were talking about developing downtown.
Back before I was even thought.
Yes. And when people see the Muskegon growth, what they don't see is that birthing of it. They don't see 5 years of to get to where they are now. They don't see a lot of things. So you can't really compare Muskegon Heights with them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, can we be as good or better? Yes. But you have to be on the same page. You have to be rowing the same direction. You know what I mean?
Right.
In order for you to get there. So you, the council, the mayor, and this city has to recognize, if we are going to pattern off of a Muskegon, you just can't pattern off of the success of it. You have to do as the Romans do. You have to get along. You have to articulate. You have to look at the vision. And like you say, roll the same way. Get there. And although it's going to be some issues, just keep going.
And I think what we have to remember is that we are trying to create economic. This is the science, the strategy behind creating economic development. When you have no money, you have no money coming in. You're creating it out of nothing, and that's what we're doing. The value is there, and even though we may not realize it as a community at all times, the value is there. And there are folks out there that understand that. You understand that. And that's why I believe you're willing to take the risk, to put your money at risk. But the devil is in the details and the numbers.
Yes.
Our job as a city is to create the space and the environment for you to operate in. But unless we're going to give you money or put money at risk or incentivize this with finances or taxes, and tax credits are
Our money.
our money. Unless we're going to do all of those things, which we cannot do because we're coming out of a hole, but unless we're going to do all that, we can't tell you how quickly to move. We can just say you've got 3 years to get it done. If you don't get it done in 3 years, then then it comes back to us.
But it also goes back to two of the major things in this community that I know that we have a hard time doing sometimes, that I see that other communities do as well. It's called trust,
Mm-hmm.
hope, and faith.
Right.
They may or we may not always trust each other, but they trust the pattern, they trust the numbers, they trust the details. And sometimes I think where we miss is it depends on how people receive the details, how we can articulate it, where it's understood sometimes, or how we can assess it. You got to trust each other. You got to believe in one another. That is the biggest step right there. There's no way Senator Bumstead or a Nate or anyone from that governor's office would ever believe or do anything if that trust wasn't there, that I could do it, or that they believed in the fact that we needed it, right?
Right.
Just like we voted for the governor. We trust her. and we believe in her. We have to have that same idea that we have for other folk. We got to have it with our own selves in our community. It's got to start there. If it doesn't start there, it ends up like it did the other night. And it's going to end up like all the gossip about what's going on with the lots or where, and like one of the business guys said to me, well, they were talking about this for 5 or 6 years and I don't see things happening. Well, dude, it's going to take 5 or 6 years to get you there because of all the steps that they don't see.
Right. Steps that if we had funding, if we
It
had
would be so
financing,
easy.
it'd be a lot easier. We could smooth a lot of those things out of the way. So right now, and I think it's a reasonable question to say, when are things going to happen? Because people have been promising things in this community forever. And so the fact that we are now right on the verge of something happening, I can understand why people are going to ask this question. But
And I can give them a emphatically answer.
we,
Because you,
we didn't have money before,
no, we didn't.
and now Mischief's on board, so that's going to be some.
But no, it wasn't that we didn't have money. We had our investment money.
Well, you did,
Yes,
the
but
city
city
didn't.
didn't have. So the hope is to bring money to you, the city,
Right.
in order to help investors like me and others. We do have a final definite, right? Yes. What I found out from the banking industry, and thank God, we were in a hurry. We were going to do the we were actually going to do the basement just so we can quiet the storm or make people happy. So talk about love. I was going to put $30,000 in the dirt that I knew I wasn't going to get back, just so that people could be okay with what they thought we were trying to do. Do you know that was probably the dumbest thing in the world? After I sat down with the banker later, he says, "You know what? I'm so glad you didn't do that, because guess what? Your buyer would not have been able to get approved." So I'm learning as I go too as well that emotional buys, just like buying a sweater you don't need, you have to be smart about your money. So as soon as the weather breaks, as they say, we're going to dig their hole, because now they have, that customer has their loan fully approved. The buyer, the developer, they're fully approved. Now the next step is to help the other developers, and we are going to work with them as well, so their customers can do the same thing. So by the spring, you're going to at least see two holes, the one on Ray, and then I think you have the other country group in the back. They're on Mans, and then you have some on Fifth Street. So what we're trying to do is work with all three of those, so that they all can get past the criticism, one, but do it correctly. And I think all of them are in that 3 year window. They should be.
Yes.
But the spring is here. But we really want, more than anything, we want to ignite the energy that it can and it is going to happen. So spring is our date, unless they bless us where you can dig holes. But right now we're in the winter, so that's why we said spring. And
And again, that explains for those people who have ears for it and who are listening, where we are in the process of moving towards getting homes built. And we desperately need homes to be built. But what we have to realize, the job of the city is to create an environment for that to happen, which we've done. Why is it valuable for us to have a 3 year contract? Because in that 3 years, our taxes are paid, right? That's
yes,
something that we had lots that were sitting there where no taxes were being paid on them whatsoever. Now those lots are sold. And even if you don't develop it, we still have taxes.
you got your money and you got
Exactly.
taxes,
You
and
got
you
your
made
money
us pay them when we
up front.
closed. It
Right.
was not like you prorated it.
No,
We paid all that money up front.
up front. Up front.
All of us, and there's three different developers. So if you look at and monetize what you got, I think that's where we started listening to each other. Say, well, maybe we didn't break it down like we are now.
Hmm.
Maybe there's a better way to communicate it, so people are not so frazzled about things that they may or may not understand. Maybe if we do a better job, and we committed our group and other groups as well, and even the bank we talked today, is somehow find a way to come to hopefully you and the city again, to say this is what it looks like. This is where we're at. But right now, my job is to bring money to the city so that the city is in a better position to help developers like me.
And we know it's going to happen.
Oh, I know it for a fact.
I didn't mention one other aspect of this transaction, again, which had not been done before. Nothing that was a contract, a purchase agreement, or a development agreement. is you have to maintain those lots in the meantime. The city would have had to hire more manpower, more people, or pay more money in order to make sure that those lots were cut and cleaned, that they weren't dumped on. Now that's the responsibility of the people who have purchased those properties, those lots up front. That's less that we have to hassle with. And so, even again, I keep saying this, even if you don't do anything for 3 years and you wait till the last moment to do it, we're still better off than we were before, which I think people lose sight of that.
Well, even some of the developers and I were talking about some of the buildings we bought, right? And we got some of the vacant fees. Okay, we learned that's part of the price of doing business, right?
Right.
So when you look at it, we got fined, we paid it.
Mhm.
Price of doing business. But it also incentivizes people who may not be able to move as fast.
Mhm.
And if you can, get someone in those buildings.
So talk about being fined, because that's an interesting point.
It hurt at first.
Right. And
Well, when we looked at it, I think I know why the city did that. For the same reason Muskegon does it. I have a building downtown. It can't stay empty. And if you don't have water, lights, and things, they will find you because they want people moving. And it's a way to get you off the dime, right? So when we first got our vacant, I talked to Cliff McLean actually yesterday. We were talking about it, and he's like, well, I get it.
you're talking about the vacant building.
Yeah.
Right. Mhm.
And it is a part of doing business. It is. So it's just a way to push us to move a little faster. That's all.
I think from some of the things I saw and heard coming from Facebook, there was a misperception or assertion that the city manager was charging vacant building fees and charging something that people just because their buildings were vacant. What I don't think of people, and we've talked about it multiple times on this show, but I'm going to say it again. This is an existing ordinance, right? I know because you
Yes, it
went and
is.
looked up the ordinance.
And no one ever did it. And I think what happens is we talked about this today, when people come into a community
Mhm.
that have not abide by their own rules forever,
Mhm.
people get really comfortable for whatever reason.
Right.
The ordinance should be your Bible that you go by.
Mhm.
I've been
Isn't-
around.
Isn't that the city manager's job
It-
to
it's-
enforce the ordinances?
Well, it is, but you're probably the first one that had pushed those buttons.
Mhm.
And so when you see those type of movements, and I've been so comfortable doing what I've been doing, and then the new kid comes on and he pushes you off, said, listen, you should have been doing that. And they said, well, my God, I've never had to do that before. The finger points at you versus the process. And, I advocate that people look at that and read it and understand it. And if you can't read and understand, ask somebody. What you're doing is nothing more but what we should have been doing before. Do you know how many buildings that's been sitting around that people own? And then I just I'm going to keep it real that we know these people that own these buildings that have never done anything about it before.
Right.
So I have no doubt that I understand why people are uncomfortable. But in reality, we should be mad at you. We should be really celebrating you because it needs to be done. This community would not be as run down as it is if we take care of some of those old buildings that's been sitting there forever. And I know who owned them, but they don't do anything about them.
Right.
So at the end of the day, it comes to a reality that if you're going to do right, do right. If you're going to do right, don't do right at all. We can't be so heavily good on one side and no earthly good on another. We cannot pick and choose our bads and our goods. Just do right. Mm-hmm. Just do good. And even if we agree to disagree, we can't go and talk about what we can do with one another or help our neighbor, like the young man said, pick up the garbage. It has to become a family thing. And I'm hoping that whether you stay or go, I think that you're awesome. I appreciate everything that you've done. I think that I'm going to say this,
if we all choked up now,
the reality is we're going forward, and I'm afraid that where we're going, if it's going to be backwards. And that was a conversation before I got today. Who's going to do what? You have been so insightful and very directive about Muskegon Heights, emotionally about what you want to do. Guess what? The state is hearing you. Guess what? The federal is hearing you. I mean, I don't think anybody looked at that Zoom call. And I don't think anybody looked who stayed on that Zoom. And I tell you, they weren't from Muskegon Heights, a lot of them.
No.
So we have a lot of community people that are looking at us and they're asking, but guess what? They're waiting too.
Sure.
The value is so great. And I hope that we don't lose that train. Someone alluded to the fact that it reminded them when we gave away our school. And this was on the East Side State today. We're talking about it because I remember in the meeting when we gave our school away. We literally gave it away. We didn't want to deal with it. We thought that the state could do a better job at it, and we gave it away. Now we have what we have. I would hope that we would think that the state or anyone could not do anything for us any better than what we can do for ourselves.
Well, what I did was not brilliant by any stroke. But all I did was come in and do an assessment, and the assessment said we have blight, we have buildings that are sitting there vacant, and the assessment says, what are we going to do about it? At the same time, we had a community that says that we need revenue. We're looking at our budget. We need to generate revenue. And we have blighted buildings that people are holding on and sitting there. And then doing this assessment, we see that there's an ordinance there that says that if you have a vacant building, you have to register it every year that it's vacant, and you have to pay a fee. And that fee escalates every single year that the building is vacant. And the objective is not so much just to pay fees or charge fees. The objective is to encourage people who have buildings to use them
and do something with them.
Right. To have them occupied, to have somebody in there so that they're being used. And that way you're not spending money to have an empty building. But if you don't enforce that, you don't generate revenue and you don't encourage people to change behavior. And that is an easy assessment. But I think the problem is that we had to assess the same thing across the board. That means that we're going to get some people that we like and some people that aren't necessarily the friends of the city. And I know you're busting your behind to develop and do things here in the city, and you got one of those. So,
and we had to pay it. And talking about assessment, this is what I said to someone today. We were talking to state is that I think you're a very wise man. I think that one of the things you did not assess, and when you married us, that I think if you had, you would have made it known that some of the things that you were being blamed for, I might as well there, that you would have known that some of those issues we had before you married us. So that it would have been only fair to give you responsibility. So since you are the city manager and you did marry us, like a man marry a woman, he don't know what our problems are until after you get her or a family. You just inherited everything that we have.
That's part of the game.
But I don't think that you, and maybe you did, because the person I know you are, you probably did assess it, but you didn't care. What you cared about was the opportunity to move us forward, no matter how good or bad we were. And I think that, and sometimes when we look at that, we don't realize how blessed we are, because we were not perfect before you came. We weren't perfect before, as the gentleman says, 2017. I can go all the way back to when Craig Laudermill was there. We weren't perfect then, when Steen was there. And then before that was Warren. But this community only see what they see. And so I would hope that when you're gone or if you stay or whatever, we will remember that the next person, if it's not you, someone else, remember who we are first. Then we could throw a rock. But I don't think we could throw one no more because we got a whole lot of things that's coming out, right?
Well, I think that's a good point, and that's a good segue to talk about some of the things that we collectively have been successful in accomplished. And I'm going to throw a few of them out there, but just real quick, Miss Aubrey, I wanted to make sure that you knew that the special session is is a public session, and it is open to the public. So thank you for that question. So some of the things that we've been able to, the Fight the Blight campaign, not been done before, a whole campaign around it. And I really have to give kudos to the inspection department, Mr. Davis, Mr. Morrow, for leading that, and for the United Way and multiple other organizations to come alongside and say, we're going to make this a priority to focus on areas in Muskegon Heights to clean up those areas.
Excellent.
The next one, Sherman Corridor paving. I mean, when you drive down Sherman, and it's not perfect, there's still some areas because of flooding issues that created some problems, but tremendous improvement. A $3 million grant that we had to use on Sherman, couldn't be used anywhere else. That was done. Hackley,
Yes.
right? Repaving Hackley. There's still sections of Hackley that need to be done, but systematically, we are getting to pieces of Hackley. We got a section of Hackley last year, and we were on the engineer, made sure that they had to make all the fixes that needed to make, but it was done. Um, Delano. If
Yes.
you've ridden down
Oh,
Delano,
I was there when we started it,
uh-huh.
past the church, and and it's great.
Right. Another legacy that was left behind of a horrible road. And yes, there are roads in throughout Muskegon Heights that really do need attention, but at least we're able to get that one. It cost us close to $1 million to get
$1 million.
that done, but a short section. But the reality is that we need to do roads, even though it's going to cost us. But we got Delano done, and not only did we get it done, we got the curbs done. A lot
Hmm.
of times we fix the road, don't fix the curb, so the drainage doesn't work out right. So this should last us another 20, 25 years, and it's done. What else we have? The farmers market.
Yes, excellent.
Hmm.
And Muhammad, I tell you,
Yes.
it's bless his heart.
Hmm.
Uh, Regina Davis, the
Yes.
people that made this such a prevalent part of this community, and the United Ways and all of the food banks, things we've done to help it. It's just really great, and
Hmm.
I see that sometimes people just devalue because they don't know. They
Right.
don't really know what it took to bring all those things here,
Hmm.
and I think that going forward, that should be our first.
The farmers market was repaved. The whole section in front of the farmers market building, grass was put in, sod was put in.
Hmm.
That whole area was just trashed. The build uh, the buildings at the farmers market were repainted.
Hmm.
The wood was sanded. The poles were painted. All this was spearheaded by the work of Carolyn Cook,
Yes.
Miss Cook, funded through community development block grants, because they saw that this was a need and a priority that we often forget about. You go and look at it now, you don't remember. This whole area was rocks. Now it's paved. Now it's painted. Now it's sanded. Now there's grass.
I hope we have pictures because I think
Yes.
that sometimes you're right
Right.
when you dress it up. It's so hard. It's like today when Thomas made the comment about when we started Gloria Gardner. I mean, such a great person, had been in this community for years. It goes back to Muskegon. Watch us go. We just forget sometimes what it looked like before we started.
Hmm. I agree. Um, the downtown lighting.
Oh my God, I remember the efforts that went into it.
Hmm. And that's I mean, we take that for granted. When you go down our main street,
Peck,
Broadway, Peck
Peck.
Street, the decorative lights are on. Some of them are still need to be dug up. And that's going to be a boatload of money if we're going to ultimately replace them. But at least we're able to get those lights back on. And I don't know if you've seen the lights out of Mona Lake.
Yes, I have.
Yes. And so those lights, some of them, just like downtown, had been on for 10, 15 years, and now it's lit up, right? And so when you light things up like that, crime goes down and you can enjoy the use of the area because it's illuminated, it's lit up. We would not have had the Christmas lights on poles
Hmm.
if those lights hadn't been turned back on. So we often forget about that. The wood fencing at Mona Lake and the black fencing at Mona Lake, that picket style fencing that's down at Mona Lake to keep people from driving up in the grass and creating ruts,
Hmm.
that wasn't there before, right? The fencing along, what is it, the east side,
It's the east side of that around the corner
keep people from driving in and unloading their boats and then driving back
for
across the
free.
street for free.
Yes.
Exactly. Now we're collecting revenue where we weren't before because
Yes.
people were doing it for free. The fencing at uh, the pocket park
Hmm.
downtown, that's got that decorative black fencing around it. The
Yes.
same fencing over by the library that wasn't there before, and it's there now. Tables and chairs.
They forgot, but they're there.
Right, right. So now you can, if you're at the library, They've had outdoor readings there. Of course, you can't do that in the snow in the winter,
But you
but
can in the summer.
right. And that wasn't, that whole grassy area was full of trash before, and it just sat there unused. Now it's fenced in, there's tables and chairs, and they actually use it as part of the library. The same thing with the Pocket Park. Solar cells at city properties. We might forget on the roofs of every single city owned property. I mean, every single city owned facility now has solar cells on it. So that's cutting into the price of our
Or your
electric
bottom
bills.
line. Yeah.
hmm What's after that? What, 8th Street
The
Park?
park. Yep.
Oh, and the guns program in conjunction with all the nonprofits, a Home Depot, United Way, the electrical companies, consumers.
You know what's so funny? Someone asked about the statue that you talked that's going in,
hmm
and they said, "Well, why do we need that?" And then there was another person said, "Oh, it's $1,000." I said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "But and I think what I got out of that conversation is that they didn't realize the value that we were putting into that park
hmm
and what we were doing." And the one response was, "Why do we have to look like Muskegon?" And I said, well, every other community, Holland, they all have these kind of parks because they gather there.
hmm
And so I think the mindset is what you were changing.
hmm
It's a fear. If you've been in the dark so long and the lights come on, sometimes, have you ever been in a dark where you turn the light on and the light shocks your eyes? It takes a minute to zone in.
hmm
That's exactly what's going on with us.
I can
And
understand that.
so, and I think that in respect to us, we do love our community, Troy. We do love this area.
hmm
It's just a little bit hard sometimes when we've seen things one way so long to adjust to the changes.
hmm
But we are, I am confident that we're going to get there. I am.
I agree. Mr. Smith, can you expound on what you mean by CPM so that our listeners know and everybody knows what you mean when you mention providing a CPM may help? Um, Going back to some of the things that have been accomplished, what do we have next? Harmonic instruments at Johnny Ho.
Yeah.
You may remember it. I know Brad Hillary at Web Chemical
Hmm.
remembers it because his
Yes.
kids were out there. But the mayor and myself were out there with picks and shovels
You were doing your thing.
tearing up the old wood playground that was there that had been condemned and it was dangerous. That's gone, and now we have an ice cement walkway down to the pavilion, and we have instruments out there that were donated due to the hard work of Larry
Yes.
Fife and the neighborhood association there in Woodcliff. The work that they've done is tremendous, and he did Mr. Fife did a golf
Golf.
tournament to raise funds for that.
And
So,
speaking of Brad Hillary, I don't think, talk about people that we know.
hmm
I don't think people know what such a champion we have in our community. I mean, he sat next to me at Muhammad's funeral, right?
hmm
And I work with him a lot of things because his kids was at our school. I just sometimes like to talk things people don't know
hmm
how what a giant this man is and how well he gives and how much he loves Muskegon Heights.
right,
And he's hired people that I've set and we worked together over the years, and
hmm
I just think that that's one of those things people just don't know.
right.
They don't know who Brett is. They don't know what he does.
He's always lining up to make contributions.
Oh my God,
Right. He's
always.
always reaching into his pocket.
The first year Christmas at the hotel, he was one of my biggest Santas, right?
hmm
I think we had like 65 kids that year. And I remember you and the mayor coming, and you helped me with the coats with the kids.
Right.
He helped me along with Jana Rout from United Way. We bought toys, and this wasn't cheap toys. We bought real toys, and it was like the trucks and the bikes. But he helped people that lived here, and I just don't think people know
Mm-mm.
how much he gives, how much he loves us.
It's so easy for us to forget about it. I mean, and quite frankly, when I sit down and tally it up, I remember. But if I didn't tally it up, I would not have remembered. And so we have to celebrate it and appreciate it, just like the Juneteenth celebration.
I'll tell you something. That first year when we first started, if it had not been for Brad, United Way, and some of my other partners and you guys, we would have never made it.
Mhm.
I remember the first
The tribe.
tribe. Yeah,
Mhm.
the tribe. That was like when we were at that last,
Mm-hmm. Last
uh,
push.
push of money,
Mm-hmm.
Larry came through, and I said, Larry, we need it. And
Larry
then
Romanelli.
Ramanelli from
Mm-hmm.
the tribe, and then Senator Bumstead helped, and then I remember us that we didn't have enough faith to do it, and I'm like, you know what, it's okay. I remember someone asked me, well, why are we doing it this year? Why are you putting that money in it? Well, because it's now or never. And it didn't mean that they didn't want to. Maybe they couldn't. But guess what? Our neighbor stepped up to help me do it. And you and Jen Ross, it just went on and on and on. Out of that, we have so many people that love Muskegon Heights.
Right.
I tell you what I learned, and I hope that we learned about things that we know, just relationships that has been built when we started this economic plan.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember just with the solar and just even with fiber, with the cable, it just goes on and on. Even when we went to Highland Park, just what they're doing,
Right.
and bringing it back home. Chauncey Billups. And you have partners, like Rob McCalvin that didn't mind investing money in this community.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I know your list probably looked like earlier today. I was talking to Senator Bumstead. We were just going down the list of all the accomplishments we've been able to do in the last 2 years. So that list looks like ours.
It goes on and on and on. When we had the fireworks show that we had never
The
done,
first
ever down at Mona Lake Park,
blew people's mind.
Mm-hmm.
All the way from Grand Haven, they were like, "Oh my God, we're coming next year!"
Right.
And remember the first year we had so much help from the state police,
Mm-hmm.
because that was when we had a lot of gun violence. Remember
Right.
that year?
I do.
And everybody was afraid to come.
Mm-hmm.
And all I got was, who's going to go down there? They're going to get shot. And so all the neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
came together.
Right.
And it was beautiful. Nobody got hurt. But the second year,
Mm-hmm.
I have this
We
picture.
went from 1,000 people that came out the first year to 5 to 7,000 in the second year.
But there's a picture that speaks volume, and it makes me almost want to cry.
Mm-hmm.
There's this little girl this year that was sitting on the bench, and they were all playing around it. And I have her, and she's looking up at the sky. She said, she said, that is the prettiest ever. And your kids and you guys are sitting like on the blanket, and your kids are looking up, right?
Mm-hmm.
I bawled all night because it's not the fact, but it was the fact that one of our own children was in a place of safety, that we created our own narrative,
Mm-hmm.
and it looked like peace.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't afraid of running for guns.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, you know what? This is what this is all about.
Right.
When we go across the state, and Troy, every time I call you, if I say, hey, we're going to go to a meeting, if I'm going to go to Lansing,
Mm-hmm.
you've been right there. You have to have that kind of partnership. And there are things that Senator and I was talking about today. We're smart at something, but boy, I tell you what, you're a smart person with a lot of things. Your negotiation skills are a little different from ours, but you do a good job at it. So we created a great team when it comes to putting together the packages that's needed, and advocating for our community. And Muskegon Heights is in such a good place when it comes to the money. I look at Ben Harbor. We were on with them, and do you know how many people look at the demographics from Muskegon Heights? Forget not Muskegon, just Muskegon Heights.
Right.
I mean, we're like an untapped market right now, just waiting to pop any day. And I just hope that we have the courage to stay to the table,
Mm-hmm.
Like we did not in Muskegon.
Right.
That when it burst, it looked like everybody but that had been living in those neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that we would take heed to that.
Right.
And I'm praying that we would slow down and realize how valuable we are to one another. And please don't get off the wagon now.
What I really appreciate about the 30 plus some odd people that came out the other night to talk about what they thought about the contract, and there were a couple people that were anti-contract, but the vast majority of them, minus those two, 35 plus. What I appreciated is they understood that even though we don't always see eye to eye,
Mm-hmm.
even though we don't agree all the time on this, that, or the other, they never doubted, and they said this, they never doubted that I had a heart for the community, that we were working for the best of the community, even though we disagreed.
And even the best of them too,
right?
Because I was there, and so a lot of us are business owners. Even at the hotel, some of the things that I have to do I never said, oh, my neighbor next door didn't do it. Now, you came as a new sheriff. I know the other two hotels have never have done what I've done. But not one time did I ever fight back because I knew it was an betterment for everybody. And so you're right. They all agreed. We agree to disagree. We all agree that
And
you didn't always like us or like what we were doing, but you were always true to who you were. And that's one thing I can say about you. You don't waver. Even when I called you to fuss about the vacant building fees, you said, well, I get it, but this is what it is, and you explain why.
Mhm.
And I said, oh, you got to be kidding me.
If I
But you
don't
know what?
charge you, how do I charge everybody
Yeah.
else?
And that's exactly what you said. And I said, well, but, and when I said, well, but, and I said, you know what? You're right. You have never heard from me since then, have you?
No.
And I think that's where being fair
Right.
is what you've shown. But I
Shared
think what
sacrifice is shared success.
oh, and it has to be a sacrifice. And some people don't realize that. They say, oh, the city want money. All city want money. You need money to make it.
Yes, to be able to provide services. And the fact that people were still willing to come in, even despite those differences, and say, we get it and we support it, that was huge to me. Whether I come back or not, or if I'm here or not, I mean, that's one of the things that will always be precious to me because of that feedback and input from people who don't always, I mean, didn't have to say anything.
There are people who couldn't even get into the building because it was so
true.
packed. And there was so many testimonials
Mhm.
that you're right. It should be a time that you never forget, but it also
No.
should reflect that you have a job well done. You know, we can always not agree, but when you've done a good job
Mhm.
and the Lord shows you by your fruit that you bear,
Right.
it doesn't matter if sometimes we don't always understand. Because I truly believe in one thing, that if you believe in God, and I know we are a God-fearing community,
Mhm.
even when we do right and we think it's wrong, God will deal with us all in his own way,
Amen.
circumspectly in our own closets. And sometimes it's hard and when we are wrong and we were right, and God chastises those he loves.
Mhm.
This community has to grow in spite of ourselves. And it's not because of us, it's because of these babies.
But you got to create memories.
Almost, well, you know, us
Gotta
old
create
folks like
opportunity.
us time to go home. I mean, I told someone yesterday, I said, we've outgrown, I
Time
mean,
to go.
seriously, we've outgrown our youthfulness in a different way. Doesn't mean that we're not youthful, follow me?
Mhm.
But it's time for us to let the young people step up, learn from us, glean from us, and work and grow with us. That's why I was so happy to see the young people like the Hideout, those young men that stepped up, and whether we agree or not with them,
Mhm.
but the fact that they felt as a business owner,
Right.
they had a responsibility. Do you know how good that looked? And a lot of these men had records.
Yep.
They have been given a second chance,
We're holding back.
and they're doing an excellent job.
Going
So
after it.
us old people, and we're seasoned,
Get out the way.
and we got to get out anyway, because you know what, they're gonna move us out of the way.
Yep.
And so we have to move very carefully, and hopefully that we won't be so honoring with ourselves that we won't share with them and stick by them.
It's got to be a collaborative.
It's got to be, because they don't know everything. They don't know all the pitfalls is.
The struggle is a lot easier
if you work together. So
that number 15, and these, you may wonder where these items came from. I asked staff to take out the whiteboard and see if they could put together what they remembered of things that have been done. And this list comes from what staff put together on that board.
And a testimony, you're right. Senator Bumstead and I worked, and Nate in different ones from the governor's office. We were going down the line, and they wanted me to share. These are the things that you have done with this council and administration.
That we have done.
Yeah, I said with you and the council and this
Right.
community have done. We've done an excellent job. And so they wanted me to share that with you,
Mhm.
so that you would not feel as though you were not cared for, because you've done an excellent job. Now, do you do everything perfect? No.
And
And
I
do
never
we expect
pretended.
for you to do perfect? No. We just expect for you to keep working and working. And so if things does not work out, please know that there's a world looking at you. And they're looking at you because of the accomplishments that you made. And I must say this, with what you have. What also came out was you were the lowest paid city manager. So, and when one of the person on the line for the state said in the world, really. And we were just assessing
Right.
all the things, that we didn't have in this community. And so my goal is, like I said to Senator, let's find a way to help Muskegon Heights get those things so we can have monies to get the grant writers and things
Right.
because we do need them.
Yeah.
And so they were just giving you guys kudos.
We're pedaling with one oar.
Yeah. So they say he must be in love because most people with that type of expertise wouldn't be there. And I said, yes, he loves, and you do. You love Muskegon.
I love the potential that's here, the opportunity that's here, for this to be the mecca of the lakeshore. There's no reason why everybody shouldn't be fighting to get into Muskegon Heights.
Someone in the audience said, well, he went and bought a house on the lake. This was I keep a journal, so I'm looking at all the people, the conversations that I was sharing. And I said, yes, but what you don't understand, his goal is to build in Muskegon Heights. I said, let's go a little further. The people before him and the one before him, Muskegon Heights bought a house for her to live in Mona Shores. Mm-hmm. Then before that, I said, so you cannot, right. And so what I'm saying to us is let's be fair people. Mm-hmm. Let's be fair because some of the things that we're beating you up about, and when I say we're beating you up, we don't understand what we're doing.
And we haven't had a conversation about it either.
No. And so I just have a big mouth that if I hear so long, I have to speak up. The words, the truth will set you free. So I figured since they didn't know what they were talking about, right. It was only fitting that I would explain to them what had happened before and where I thought you were going, because I know your interest was to build a new house here.
Yeah. What happened was, we had put in several offers that were rejected. And so that was in Muskegon Heights. Okay.
And I didn't know that, but I knew the facts were that you had spoke about building one
exactly
on the corner of Hackley. But I know that, so that's one caveat of the conversation. But let's be real. Why do we have the conversation about this, but you didn't have it about the other things? I just want us to be fair. That's all I want us to do. Right. I want us to look at everything through a full glass and not be held whether it's you or anyone else, accountable for things that we can't hold ourselves accountable for.
Understood.
And that's what church folks are supposed to do for each other. So if I go to church with them or I go with one of my sister churches, I feel like the word says you should what? Tell each other and go to one another. So it was all, and it was even in love. We didn't fight.
Well, let's get through as many of these as we can. We had the boat race on Mona Lake. And that was in collaboration with Mona Shores.
Yes.
And if you remember, it was set for the 4th of July weekend, and unfortunately we had to cancel it because of Corona.
Yeah.
But that would have been one of the first collaborative.
I hope we could do it again too.
Yes.
Because
they just want to fit us into their schedule that we're working. Well, we were working on.
Because the route to come to us is so easy.
Yep.
And I'm hoping that out of that relationship we built, that they would come more and pay to dock their boats there.
That's
the key. Right. So hopefully that'll work
out. The foreclosed properties program.
Yep.
Something that's never been done. We haven't exercised our right of refusal.
We did the first time ever.
Yep. And with those properties, we made them available to people who lived in Muskegon Heights first. And after that, we made them available to people outside of the Heights. But at the end of the day, we controlled our own destiny by exercising that right of refusal. We're going to have to pay for those properties either way. So why not own them if we're going to have to pay for them either way? And that's part of the understanding that I think we did not have before that we have now, so that we can now control our destiny by taking those properties and making sure that they're available first to Muskegon residents and businesses. And then the second factor about that is that those properties are now kept fresher instead of just sitting vacant for the year it takes for them to go through multiple auctions to then potentially come back to us later. Why do all that? We have the opportunity to keep people who may have been otherwise evicted out of their properties in their properties through this whole process, but it's got to be done at the city level. Take me out of the equation. The city manager notwithstanding, the city of Muskegon Heights has to exercise that right of refusal to take that.
But they have to also understand, give credit what's due. That first initiative, you had to collaborate with people that would do that, to give you the money to do that. At the time, you didn't have it. And so collaborating with you and having people to do that. You gave it back.
Right.
The agreement was
Right.
the city had to recognize you put that together with them, and so
we had to go out and get private money
and we did,
for the first, and you were a part of that. Yeah.
And so, given that, and then feeding into your vision is that you share to start at home and spread abroad. We did it, and you did it, and we gave it back. And a lot of people, you're right, didn't understand that. They thought you were giving us something. No, we gave it to you as a gift.
Yes.
And then the next year they picked it up. But I think that first testament of us doing it together is where I know we made the right move. It was we worked together.
Right.
It didn't even sound right to the partners. Like, you're gonna buy what for them and give it back to them? Yes, this is home, and we honor their work. And so I think the city need to recognize that those relationships that you built with the developers like myself and others, it doesn't happen where they will come and just give you something for you to give back to your community.
And watching Eric come in last night and talk about what it meant to his family to be able to stay in that property,
yes,
makes that all
worth it, doesn't it?
It does. That's what the policy was all about. And if you hadn't had a chance to see the policy, I mean, that's one of the first things in the policy. Figure out a way to keep people in their homes, because if we didn't exercise that right of refusal, the properties would have gone downtown and they would have been foreclosed. They would have been auctioned, and the chances that those people would have been able to stay in their homes are slim to none. I'm not going to say none, but it was slim to none.
It was slim to none. But think about the shock that we did put it in the community, that we stuck up together. The land bank wasn't even expecting that move because no one has ever done it that way, And so I think that, and even that has brought Tony and other people to work with us closer. And now they see that we are a community that's going to be a part of what they're doing. I just see nothing but no. Eric, that was definitely a tearjerker, because that young man, when he called, he said, "I got it." He was happy than a pig in snot. And I tell you, you would be too, because if we lost our homes, what would we do?
Right. That's very true. And thank you, Mr. Smith, for clarifying that you were talking about a construction timeline. And we do need to do that more broadly. We have done construction, and we are doing construction timelines for all the construction work, the grant work, and that's something that we're about to get to those items. So I'll talk about that then. But we did the foreclosed properties, the enterprise fleet management system. We have vehicles and trucks that dated back to 1984. We figured out a way to refresh and come up with new vehicles and save money at the same time. And so thank you for Enterprise and the other fleet management companies that were out there that helped us to realize the value of refreshing and renewing our fleet on a regular basis. And fortunately, because of the pricing that Enterprise was able to offer us with the state system, that's the one we ended up going with, and it saved us money, and we're getting new vehicles.
It looked beautiful, those trucks on the lawn. Some people was like, "Why are the trucks on the lawn?"
I know.
I said, so that you can look at them and you can adore them like you drive new cars down the street.
Yes.
You know that there's growth there. You know that they're birthing. So it's just, again, I said, it's just new, and we haven't had that birthing for a long time. So this community is ready to move. It just took us a little longer. That's all.
Mona Lake is a jewel that we have to leverage, and we can't do that year round if it's flooded. And so, yes, we had 100-year lake levels that we dealt with, but we want to make sure that with this flood control plan that we were able to put together, that we can begin to modify Mona Lake so that we don't have to worry about flooding in the future. And so we appreciate the fact that we now have a flood control plan where we can address that so that we can use the lake year round. Come on in. We have let's see. Oh, look at that. Okay. All right. Welcome. Mayor Pro Tem, how you doing?
Hey, Mayor.
All right.
How are you, Pro Tem? How are you doing?
You gonna hop on the mics with us?
No, I don't need to hop on the mics right now.
Yeah, you do. Get over here.
Say hello to the listeners and the watchers.
Hello to the listeners and the watchers of Muskegon Heights.
Appreciate it.
How you doing, my brother?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, trying in it to win it. Try to make sure. We just keep moving.
Yes. Yeah. We're going at it.
It's a task.
Yes.
But we got to keep moving, and change is happening, so we just got to keep moving.
Amen to
Amen.
that.
People got to
Amen.
see it. They got to visualize it. So, I mean, we are people of vision. So once they
Mhm.
see it and they see the things happening, I think people will be more excited about what's going on.
Right.
Again, coming out of this pandemic,
Mhm.
things are moving slow. In Muskegon, we was already slow. So that put us even slower.
Right. When the
At a slower
world
pace.
catch a cold, we catch pneumonia. Right.
Exactly. Think about it. I mean, if we think about how this other pandemic happened, it happened on the east side of the state and moved towards the
Mhm.
west side. So Grand Rapids had it weeks and months before we had it, and then all of a sudden it came
Right.
over to the Muskegon area. So it's just the same way. I mean, the things that's happening, progress is happening.
Mhm.
Our community people has to see it, and we're at that breaking point. Like I say, my biggest thing is we can get personal issues and things out of the way. I think we can move.
Yeah.
I think we can move and do some great things. So I'm pretty.
I would agree definitely that we can do some great things,
Yeah.
and we're on the verge. And that you hear the mayor talk about we're on the verge of a breakthrough or a breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
We are right there, coming out of the pandemic, and we forget sometimes we were the highest incident. We had the highest incident of corona in the county. You know, we were unfortunately leading in that category for the entire county, and that put us back 2 years. Other communities were able to thrive during COVID because they had money, but for us, not having money and COVID on top of that, you know, by the grace of God, we got the federal
Thank God
government.
for Arbor money.
Exactly.
And that's what's funny.
And that didn't come until the end of the pandemic. So go ahead.
And that's what's so funny. I mean, we ask questions about Harper. We ask questions about where we're going to be without Harper. Okay, the fact of the matter is we have it right now. We have to be smart on our usage with it.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be smart and allow that to make money for us. And that's one of the things that I hold us as council responsible for. Is coming up with different ideas. And I think, Mr. Bill, you've asked us on several occasions.
Mm-hmm.
We've actually had council people that talked about the fact that we need to strategically come up with ways to spend the ARPA so that we can better have usage of it. But when it comes up, where's it in writing? We talk, but then we procrastinate. And that's where we are at with our council right now. We procrastinate on a lot of things, but then when it doesn't happen,
Mm-hmm.
then we do the finger pointing. And that's one of the things that disturbs me quite a bit is that we finger point on a lot of things that we should take the fault.
Mm-hmm.
And that what hurts me as a person, as a man, and as a Christian. We're looking at the mote that's in everybody else's eyes, but we don't take a look at what's happening with ours. So at the end of the day, I think we're headed in the right direction. I had a chance to listen to some of the things that you guys on the radio as I was coming this direction. I saw the car. Hey, let me turn in there and see if they're still there, just to have a conversation, not knowing that you guys are still on radio. But at the end of the day, we do have homes being built.
Mm-hmm.
We do have vacant property that's starting to have production on it. And it's just about coming. We do have infrastructure coming about. Take a look at the west side, southwest side of the Heights come spring.
Yes.
These are things that's going to start happening. And for any of us to say we don't know,
Right.
as a leader, as council people, for us to say we don't know, I'm trying to figure out what meetings we've been at.
So I think what I explained is what they didn't know, and just being fair. Sometimes when people don't understand,
Mhm.
like grant money and your own money is two different things.
Mhm.
And some of the houses, I think one had a grant. We were private funders, and so when they looked at the value, there were some things that was holding us up that I wish that they had asked, and maybe we could have clarified better
Mhm.
that they had a concern, but we didn't know. We just knew,
Right.
we just knew that. I know.
It's about keeping it moving.
Yeah, I know. We had a meeting with one of the councilmen because he was concerned, and I gave him all the information, and I gave him, different things to back it up. But I think sometimes when we go to meetings, it's important that when you leave the meeting, and it works to get you a good understanding, right?
Mhm.
When you leave that meeting and you've gotten confirmation and you've gotten an understanding of the questions that you all may be asking, it is their responsibility to tell you all so you would know. Because we had meetings with
Well, how do
Miss.
we follow up? How do we follow up as council? How do we follow up after the meeting with the information that we received? That is another point that I like to bring up.
Mhm.
It's nothing that there's nothing hidden. There's nothing secretive about what's going on in Muskegon Heights. All of us say the same thing, and there's no knock to Mr. Bell. We've all said we want better communication, but is that justifiable for not having someone? That's my point.
Well,
So what you're saying with communications, that's a two-way street that we're coming back at. We have information. Let's ask questions. Let's first put ourselves in position that we can receive the information and then be receptive when we do receive it versus putting our emotions involved and saying, well, I didn't know this ahead of time. Muskegon Heights, we're too small for that. I mean, we are a blessed people.
extremely.
We are a blessed people, and this community is going to see how truly blessed we are, but we can't miss out on our blessings because we do wrong.
Well, one of the things that we said we would do is that when we recognized that there was a gap in some of that communication, I said to one of the councilmen, and I've said it to Mr. Bill, as developers, we're going to make sure that we come back to you all personally. So when there's a meeting, maybe with, like we've had with Mr. Bill and one councilman and one of the other, is I think we should make the next step so that it doesn't get dropped until we get that command. You know what I mean? Because right now, not having that command did hurt a lot of people, including us. Because if things don't work, look at all the work to get to where we are, right? Just because of communication. So we decided we would do it.
Do want to pause and thank Ms. Vines for her comments about blight being an issue, and the fact that there needs to be a policy that is enforced. We're in the process of enforcing that policy. I know that makes some people unhappy, but when you park your car up in the grass, you're going to get a citation. You're going to get a sticker. When you leave open storage on your front lawn, you're going to be cited for that. When you leave stuff on the terrace and it's not labeled, there's going to be accountability for that. And that's across the board, regardless of who you are. And I know that that is not something that everybody wants to hear.
But Mr. Bill, this is an issue that we've had for a long time. We are a privileged people here in Muskegon Heights. We're very privileged. And one of the things that I look at is change. It's hard for us to accept change. Change is happening, and it's positive change because now even the financing for the Heights is changing. Like I said, after so many years, our very own the inspection department is able to fund itself because we have 4 different people or more that's working in there doing their jobs effectively. And it's bringing, no one like to talk about it, but how do cities survive? By the revenue that is generated through those departments.
Exactly.
We don't like it, but that's the way the business is. So when change is coming, don't fault us for actually implementing the policies that's already been in place for several years. The fact of the matter is, Mr. Bell, thank you. Thank you for finally having the guts enough to come in and say, this is what's already on the books. We're just going to implement it so that because for city manager, your job is to bring revenue to the city by whatever means necessary. You're not trying to tax our citizens. We're just trying to better the look, better the overall impressions of what is happening here in the city of Muskegon Heights. So let's not blame the city manager. Let's not blame the council. These are policies and procedures that's already in place that is now starting to be implemented. If we want our city to look better,
that's how we
it has to start someplace.
That's how
Yes.
we
And sometimes change hurts, but the beautification after change is the best thing in the world. No matter what we have, people that are remodeling their homes, it may look crazy now. It may look like junk now. But when you're investing and you're improving things, the look that you know you're going to have in the 6 months or 7 months that it take you to reinvent it, guess what? That's what Muskegon Heights is at right now. So, Mr. Bell, hey, listen, at the end of the day, I support you. I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for what you're doing for the city of Muskegon Heights. Because guess what? People, citizens, and I don't even know why I'm here because I don't even come this way right now. But, Mr. Bell, if you didn't care about the city of Muskegon Heights, you wouldn't be on this radio right now. Because you don't have to be on this radio. You could have said, hey, I'm done. You guys have said, well, what you wasn't going to do, I'm not renewing my contract or whatever the case is. Guess what? Whatever happens in the city of Muskegon Heights to this day, I'm done. You was working yesterday. You've been working today. Guess what? You don't have to do that.
Right.
So on behalf of Muskegon Heights, and I say on my behalf as Mayor Pro Tem, thank you. Because that shows your dedication, your commitment to this city, to our citizens. I listened to some of the things that you said. You were right on mark. Thank you. Your heart, and I hope other people see that your heart to making sure that this city survives is the best thing in the world. You mean a lot to this city, and you've grown the impression on me as a man. Thank you.
I do appreciate it. And you're right. That's what we're here for. That's what this job is all about. This is what it's going to take in order to move the community forward. And I knew that when I took this position. I knew that it was going to be going to be a 40-hour a week job. Mm-hmm. You know, and it wasn't going to be.
You know, it's going to be 120 hours
well,
a day, 120 a day.
Right.
And you're right. He was right on point the next morning.
Can I say this? Can I say this? And I know I'm not taking up your time. I'm sorry, but Mr. Bill, I think our citizens need to understand the titles that you have, the roles. We hold you responsible for city manager.
Right.
But most of our citizens that don't come to our meetings don't really get a chance to see all the things that you really have to do as a city manager. Mm-hmm. We already understand that we're very understaffed.
Yes.
And I just want to paint a picture. Okay, we have tasks for the city manager. There are responsibilities, let's say items 1 through 10. Mm-hmm. By the time you start on 1 through 10, you have others coming to you of things that may be as important other items that you already had 1 through 10.
Right.
And then now you have us as council saying that we get messages from citizens that now may be important, that now come involved at 1 through 10, which that item is now 15 through 20. What is more important?
Right.
So now you as a city manager have to try to figure out how do you juggle, because you don't have the heads and all these other departments that other cities have to try to figure out what is item number 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
So that is what the picture needs to be painted.
He's a financial director. He's
right.
It
is not that you're not trying to communicate to us or the community. You're overwhelmed with anything and anybody else that come into this position.
Right.
It's going to be the same way. Now we are understaffed. And I cannot see us, and I'm sorry, I cannot see us with no city manager, no finance director, no water filtration director,
No
Assessment.
assessing.
no assessor,
Equalization.
no equals. All of this right now,
And a grants writer.
we cannot afford that big change right now.
If you didn't hear earlier,
Citizens.
I just told him I was on the phone earlier with people across the state, and they were talking about just what you're talking about, and they were saying that it reminded them when Muskegon Heights gave their school away. Mm-hmm. And so they were quoting stuff that I think the mayor said that he was going to contact the state. And they said, why? Because you don't have to contact it. It's automatically gone. Because you don't have the capacity to take care of yourself. They said, well, do they not understand that? And I said, yeah, I think we do. I think sometimes it's like what you said. It has to be broken down in a different way. Mm-hmm. Like how you eloquently explain that you're a Jamaican and you're doing 50 jobs with one head. People don't see you, right, all that stress that maybe. And I'll tell you, when you were sick that day, we don't know that could have been such a different outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was because of stress. And I don't even
That's
think,
what my doctor said.
well, I mean, I'm going to tell you
I don't know
something.
if I agree with that.
I don't think that we realized when you didn't show up, and I thought about it later, and I thank God that nothing happened to you. But I hope that it would have been a trigger. So every time I call you, I says, I hope you're getting your rest. I hope you're letting it go. This man would answer the phone 24/7 for this city. This man would be here, fly down the highway to go to a funeral, and come back and go to work.
Phyllis, you're about to make me cry, and I'm going to tell you why. When that happened, I never even knew where Bill lived. All right? Never been to his house. But I got a call from Mayor that day, because normally we'll talk to him in the morning. He didn't answer. He was supposed to be in a staff meeting. No answer.
Wasn't like him, was it?
So it wasn't like not to hear. And when I arrived to his house, by the time fire crew was there already, attending to him, he really didn't even know where he was. He was laying in the bed, barely conscious, to the point that they were doing everything else. They said, listen, we need to call for medical to come and get him. All right. So he went to the hospital. Now, this is my thing here. Still, as he's to the hospital, he's trying to find his phone. All right. He won his computer because he knows that he still had things that he had to get done. Go back to that item 1 through 10. And so don't come to me, citizens, like that with about a man with a heart like this who was on his deathbed.
And it was his deathbed. He almost.
I'm telling you what I saw. He was in the hospital 3 days. Citizens didn't even know this because he was still planning and putting people in position to do the things that needed to be done. The things that he's doing now, he still had other people trying to pick up the pieces. This is what brings tears to my eyes. Because while that was happening, they were still saying, slew him, kill that man, take him down, we want him. What? Christians, is that how we do people? And at the end of the day, I got to do this one. At the end of the day, we turn around. What hurt me the most, and I told Mayor this the other day, and now it's funny that this coming up. I said, you know what really hurts me right now? Because this man, our city manager, our leader was in the hospital. We never sent a fruit basket.
We sure didn't.
We never sent a card.
We did.
And we never said, and I'm talking about council as a whole. Oh. We never said, hey, here we are. Thank you. Hopefully you feel better. We didn't do that. Who in their right mind, and we're a city of friendly people. Take the sign down, people. Because this is our leader that we didn't even show appreciation to.
People who are not afraid to die. And I'm going to leave us with this.
No, that's all right. We're getting ready to take a quick break here, but finish what you're going to say.
People who are not afraid to die, because we do things so easily, and we don't think that it could be us at any time. And we make decisions that we don't know that the Lord sit high, he looks low. Mm-hmm. And so we look at these young people in the streets. They don't even fight like dogs like we do. They have a different type of fight. And so I don't know how you got here either, because I wasn't supposed to be here either. I ended up, and I've been on the phone with the state, talking to the senator and trying to figure out what we can do to help.
I was going to get me something to eat. Well, and my house is 3 miles back the other way.
I don't think that you expected us like this today either.
No, I didn't.
But I do know God has a way of doing things. But I tell you something that church folks need to be careful of, is that the things that we do and the ditches that we dig, that they are also dug for ourselves. And then we have to be accountable to a different level. And so we will be. We will be.
Yep. And so these are the things that are part of the job when you're trying to move a community that has struggled for
a long time. And thank you for having that compassion and love for us in spite of ourselves. But I do remember that day as well, and I thank God that you're still here.
It's a blessing.
And then I keep telling you, take care of thyself, because you're all that we have.
But I do believe that
on behalf of everyone in our community and in healthcare, thank you for doing your part.
We appreciate your doing your part to keep us all safe.
When in public, stay 6 feet away from others.
Wash your hands often for at least 20 seconds with soap and water.
Wear a mask. Together, we are slowing the spread of this virus.
And together, we are saving lives.
The wait is over. The all-new Umoja Radio Network, home to over 40 black-owned radio stations and podcasts, is here for you. Connect to the world's fastest-growing collection of unapologetically black and proud media, from podcasts to independent black-owned radio stations, and access to the important news and music you need. Umoja Radio is from our culture, by our culture, for our culture. The all-new Umoja Radio is available right now on Google Play and the Apple Store. Join the movement. Be empowered.
The second annual I Am Her Feminine Hygiene Drive, supporting young ladies from Ghana, Africa in need of everyday essentials and feminine hygiene products, was a great success. Thanks to the generosity of our community and organizations like Period.org, Muskegon Heights Public School Academy, Confident Cosmetics, Muskegon Heights Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Inc., and everyone who made a contribution, Hundreds of young ladies and village members received essential items. The community made a lasting impact with more than 10,000 sanitation items donated. If you would like to help, donations can be made year-round by dropping off items in the donation shed at the Maize and Wright Media Center, located at 1877 Peck Street, or making a contribution to paypal.me/1037thebeat. For more information, call 231-727-5007. Thank you for supporting I Am Her Foundation.
When smoking gives you COPD, you learn to lie a little bit. You make up excuses like, I have to get my keys. You guys go on. Anything so you can walk at your own pace. I used to do that all the time. Those lies don't work anymore. My tip is, the worst lies are the lies you tell yourself. Like smoking isn't that dangerous.
You can quit. For free help, visit cdc.gov/tips.
Welcome back to Reaching New Heights with Troy Bell, the city manager, City of Muskegon Heights, where you get to know what you need to know so you'll be in the know. Thank you for hanging with us. I know we've gone a little bit longer than what we normally do, but I think that this is a time and a place that warrants that. We had some guests that we didn't expect, and I welcome them because I think some of the things that they wanted to say needed to be heard. And so it's good to have everybody in the studio, and for all the people that are commenting and listening. Again, thank you, Ms. Fines, for talking about revenue as the port for development. You get it, and I thank you for that. And also pointing out that public administration and policy development, criticism is very easy, and not everybody understands everything that goes into the budget process and to the decision-making process and the administrative process. But that's why it's important for cities that go out there to look for professional managers that have the credentials to do this kind of work, so that you can put your trust and faith in the work that they're doing according to the code of ethics that comes from being an ICMA credentialed manager, like what I've been blessed to have with ICMA. But now that we're back here, I want to get back into our show. Thank you so much for your comments before the break, Mayor Pro Tem. And I think, Ms. Laudermilk, you had something that you wanted to add, right?
Yeah, one of the things we like to do tonight is, because a lot of people don't know that they can come out to the meeting, and that is correct. It is an open meeting, right?
There is an open meeting tonight,
Okay.
yes.
We were looking at maybe doing some thank you support, just to say, to kind of spin off to what Councilman said. We really do appreciate you, Troy.
Yeah.
And the developers that some of them cannot be here in person, so they asked me to say to the city that we are committed to do whatever we can to help, but we are greatly saddened that we had that loss because we need that support from you guys. So today when we were on the phone with the state and Senator Bumstead and different ones, and they're talking, like, what is our next step? So I'm hoping that tonight we get some answers to that.
And that's what tonight's meeting is about. We're fortunate enough, like you say, to still have Mr. Bell around. and to be able to hear from him as a city manager, as some of the things that he has in place, some of the things that he's been working on. Because if he's not going to be here, we still have to have a successor and know what direction that we have to go in.
Right.
So he has an opportunity to share with the community, to share with us. And again, at the end of the day, I appreciate me. At the end of the day, as council, I understand it's a hard job. We have a hard task in front of us. So I told him at the meeting, your vote, hey, at the end of the day, I appreciate your vote, whether it was for or against. You did a job. At the end of the day, we still have to just do what's best. And so tonight, Bill is doing what's best for the city. He's saying, hey, I'm still showing up to speak, to let the community know, to let the citizen know, to let council know where I'm standing at right now, where we're at as a city to keep moving forward. These are contracts that we have that we're still working on. They're not even finalized contracts yet.
No.
So these are things that he was working on. And how can we move forward with an unfinished contract that are major contracts right now at this present time and moment? We have to really think about what we're doing. So citizens, all the things that we were talking about that we wanted to do and how we wanted to do it, it's hard to do it without the leader who had the vision to start it. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes all the sense.
I don't know if
in
it
the
makes
world.
sense. But, even with that, we still have to be able to move forward as a city. We're resilient. We have to move forward. And that's where we are. Tonight, thank you, Mr. Troy Bell, for the services, for the input, for the leadership, for the guidance that you've given us. And guess what? Whatever God says for you, man, hey, it is what it is.
Wow.
Don't let nothing and nobody take your spirit from you. At the end of the day, I said this, and I told you I get happy when I talk about this. And anybody can see me right now, know that my tone goes up. My players can tell you the same thing. So I don't be yelling at people or nothing. It's just I'm passionate. Mm-hmm. But one thing came and said, man, a scripture came to me, and I said, and I hope I don't get in trouble with saying this online on radio. But he said, I find no fault. They were trying to crucify Jesus. He said, I find no fault in this man. Troy Bell, I find no fault in you. I'm publicly saying that. All right? Mm-hmm. We talk almost every day.
We do.
We talk about better things that can better. But that's what I'm supposed to do as a man, come to you to talk and say, what can we do? And the biggest thing we say, talk to everybody. Communicate with everybody. That's it. Mm-hmm. I find nothing else, Mr. Bell, that I can say to you as a city manager that you're not doing, because I see the hard work that you're putting in. So the citizens that voted me in, I'm telling you that I'm doing my job to tell you what I see. And those that didn't vote me in, I'm still telling you what I see in this man. I find and have found no fault in this man, that the reason why we are not keeping him as our city manager.
Well,
that's me.
I want to say thank God for Reverend Clarence Guy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that spoke in that room, but, there's a Godfather in everything we do. And so even when there was a councilman that said, and the reason why I'm speaking on this is someone in the room said, well, there were a lot of good things said, but there's a lot of bad things said too, right? But one of the things Reverend Guy reminded us, and then is that you're right, it doesn't matter as a family. In a family where some of you can be right and some of you can be wrong at the table, or you don't all like green peas together, but mom says you don't worry about it, you're going to eat it anyhow. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what Reverend Guy said. And so I'm going to specify Reverend Clarence Guy. Mm-hmm. Clarence did an eloquent job of bringing it all full circle. That even in spite of ourselves, we have no room to find fault, but we do have room and love to find that we can bring togetherness. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'm praying, and I'm sure that other people are, that we don't get caught up in what we did wrong or right. Because sometimes, let's say if you made a wrong decision, but it really should have been the right decision, right? Don't listen to the Facebook and people. When godly people have to remember is what God wants you to do. And if you made the wrong decision about something, and there's a way to make a wrong right, make it right. Don't look at, what the people are going to say. And that's just what I believe in. And I don't know what could happen out of this, but what I did say to Senator and some people I talked today from across the state is I believe in our governor. and I know that she's going to come see about us. I know she's going to be on point. And I know she can't be perfect because they talk about casino and everything that she did not do. But I know she loves Muskegon Heights. I know Muskegon Heights loved her, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even in Governor Whitmer and things that she do not perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
We still support her. We have to do the same thing with each other.
Ms. Loudermill, that's one of the key things, and I'll say this, and I say this with my heart. That's one reason why I don't like politics. I'm not a politician. I'm a Christian.
You're a servant.
I'm a true servant.
Yes.
It's hard for me to look at the way that politics work and look at how we treat one another. And yet at the same time, we're supposed to be able to take the scriptures that oversees everything, even the politics, and say that we are doing our just duty. I'll tell everybody, I am not a good politician, and I would never, and I don't want to be a politician. People say, well, you are because you're in the position. No, I'm a servant. I serve my city. I serve my city with my heart and my soul. I've done that since I was 16 years old, and I learned under Mr. Fisher, Mr. Rowan, Pastor Guy, and those Reverend Weems, and all those older gentlemen, even Miss Wilkinson. I learned under them. Mayor Warren. We had to go and take these voting certificates around. We went door to door. We was literally with the microphones going through the city, going door to door.
That's the way I learned.
It wasn't about the politician. It was about serving. And that's what I've seen. I've seen service within our community.
It's died.
And what I've looked at, the documents, when I'm looking at the grants that is still coming into the city of Muskegon Heights, those things come in because of work that's done behind doors. It is nothing that's just guaranteed to us. You still have to work and follow up on those things. So I am not, and I don't want to be a politician, but one thing that I challenge all of us as Christians to do the right thing. Let's get off our high horse and think that because I have an attitude, because the first thing the Bible tells us, if I got an ought with someone, I'm supposed to go to them and them alone. And then if that doesn't happen, I go to a mediator. So somebody that don't even have anything to do with it. So now they can mediate between us. And then if they don't, then they go, which we would do. We would go to full council and we'll go to the people, to the public, and let them do the judging. However, if we did that, we had a case the other day. And Bill, you were on trial. All right? And while you were on trial the other day, I think the prosecution's case came up, or the defense came up. And there were about 40-some people in that room. Now, I can't make this stuff up. There was 40-some people there. Out of the 40-some people, 30 plus spoke the positive things on you. Were there negative things? Yes.
2.
But those negative things were about choices and decisions. It was not about your character and what you did. It was about your choices because it was policies and things that you implemented that was already in place, so it wasn't about you. So again, when I look at your trial, it was true. It was a reasonable.
Like they crucified Jesus.
It was undoubtedly decided that the citizens said to retain. But we did what we wanted to do and said, no, we're not listening to you. So now I'm saying to the citizens, if we as council didn't listen to the citizens, what are you going to do to us? What is it that, what? Because right now we act however we want to act in council meetings, in the city. What is our punishment?
And I think we have come probably to the end of our time here. And I think the producer's saying either we need to take a break or we need to round things up. I'm not sure which one.
And I miss y'all show up today. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I don't know what this show is going to be. So
I
I just
showed
showed
up.
up. And I showed up actually I showed
Are we
it.
okay?
I showed
So
it.
we're doing a break then, and then come back after the break.
We'll explain why I showed up, and then you understand how it all ties in.
Man.
Because I tell you how the Lord works. Someone had called and they were saying that.
So hold that thought. I think we're going to be able to go to a break, and then we can come back to you after the break.
Okay.
So we'll see here.
But I love Pastor Guy. He's just.
We don't have very many of him.
No.
The second annual